Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Wouldn't it be nice to have a playbook for success? That's why today's guest, Clint Babcock, wrote Negotiating from the Inside Out. Clint, thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, Bill, appreciate you inviting me to be on.
Clint, I'm going to admit to the audience, I have made every mistake you talk about in your book. And as I reprimanded you before, why did you wait so long? Not that you really did, but to write it, because, boy, could I have used this book 5, 10, 20 years ago. It's great. It's terrific. You start out saying that we should start with a mirror. What does that mean in terms of negotiating?
Well, when I'm in front of a group of executives or sales teams, I'll ask them, I'm like, hey, well, what do you know about negotiations? What's your negotiations intelligence? If I said, hey, you got to stand up and talk about it, what could you tell me? And really where that comes from, Bill, is how do you personally view and look at negotiations? How are you wired for it? What are the things that you look at, when you look internally at yourself? Do you enjoy the art and the challenge and the science of negotiations, or is it something that you tend to try to avoid? So
I'm going to be honest with you and say, yeah. I think I'm the avoider. Okay. I know it doesn't sound powerful, and I should say I'm going to jump right in there and beat that other guy's rear end in, but I think I'm the avoider, the non-confrontational, and I would guess, and you're the expert, that's probably the majority of people. Am I correct?
I would say if you say majority above 50, 60%, then yeah. And here's what I'll ask. I'll say, hey, how do you handle and are you okay with conflict? So Bill, if you're saying, yeah, hey, that's one of the things that I don't do so well, then usually I start with, hey, how are you with conflict? Are you willing to take it on? Because if you think about negotiations in its pure essence, you want something, I want something, and now we have conflict over that. So if you're looking in that mirror and you're the type of person that does not like conflict, then you got to recognize that and realize that, hey, it's a game. There's some science behind this. If I can put some path around that, I can work my way through it. Because non-confrontational people, when dealt with in negotiations, think about what they're going to do. They're gonna either want to be on the both ends of the spectrum. One end of the spectrum, I don't want the conflict. The price is the price, or the deal is the deal. That's it. Don't want to play. The other is, you want this? Okay, well, let me go see if I can make that happen. And they run back to their manager, or they give in way too soon and too early, and now they continue to be negotiated against because somebody got something too early, too fast, too easy. Right?
Well, I'm probably that one who would hire you. Let's put it that way. I would say instead of getting into the conflict, and again, being perfectly honest, because I think a lot of people, just give our audience an idea. How many times a day or a week I think we think of negotiating as a business problem, something lawyers do, high-powered lawyers, politicians, but the average person, the teacher, the accountant, the restaurant owner, how many times are we negotiating? We may not put it under that category, but you're laughing, right. So I'm sure it's more than we think.
Well, no, it's an interesting exercise. When I say, when I'm teaching a class, I'll say, hey, what are all the things we negotiate? And you're exactly right. Everything with time with the kids, time with the spouses, who's going to pick up who. You can think of all the family negotiations that goes into it, right? We got the holidays coming up, right? Hey, are we going to your family, or are we going to my family? And then, Bill, I don't know so much about your show, and you might have to edit this out. Somebody always says sex. And I'm like, okay, I don't go there. This book isn't around that category, but if, it's just something that always comes up. So, and the reason why I even mention that is you're exactly right. We negotiate so much, even when we're going to buy things for ourselves, we put on that negotiation hat. If we're going to buy a piece of furniture or something, are we the type of person that's going to just pay retail price, or are we the type of person that's going to at least poke at it a little bit and do our research and come prepared? And I think that's kind of key to start realizing, how do you negotiate as a buyer? Because a lot of times we think it's easier as a buyer because it's the golden rule, right? We have the gold, we get to make the rules. Well, maybe not.
I like what you said about the husband and wife, because I think right away people who might not have been paying close attention, just in the family, like who takes out the garbage, who has to walk the dog tonight. Now that I know some of these tricks, now you might be getting a note from my wife after the show or in a day or two, and a very nasty note, but I'm going to use some of your tricks and see if they work out. So be assured they will be tried in the marketplace. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
You mentioned something in your book called identity and role theory. Yeah. What does that mean, and how does that affect us?
So identity role theory, its easiest way, if I could describe it this way, is Bill, think of all the roles that you play in your life. Okay, look at the role side first. Bill, do you have kids?
Oh, I do, yes. And a dog.
So you're a father, and you're a pet owner, and you're an attorney, and you're a radio show, a podcast show host. You could be a brother, a sibling, an employee. So a great thing to do is sit there and recognize all the different roles that I play and how I transition in and out of those throughout the day. For me, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a sales trainer, I'm a leadership trainer. So at any given time during the day, I'm going in and out of those roles. And at any given time, I'm doing really, really well in those roles. But then sometimes I'm not so good in those roles, right? Those are going to fluctuate up and down. No matter how those fluctuate up and down, the key here is the separation of role versus identity. My identity are my core values, my beliefs, my confidence, how I feel about myself. So Bill, at the end of this podcast, we could hang up and you could call me and you could say, Clint, that's the worst podcast I've ever had the pleasure of doing with anybody ever. And because of this, and this. And Bill, you would be giving me criticism based upon my role. That has nothing to do with my identity, who I am, my values, my beliefs. So when we teach this, we try to make that a separation. So coming full circle, as a negotiator, you're going to negotiate sometimes really, really well. And other times you're going to negotiate maybe not so well for yourself or for your organization, your company. As long as we understand the identity part, here's our rule. You will consistently perform with how you see yourself conceptually, and you'll perform in that way in your role. So if you see yourself as confidence, if you see yourself as having core values, good belief systems and such, if you see yourself there in that winner category, then you will consistently perform and work on your role to be there. Versus if you see yourself less than, then you'll look at mediocre performance as good.
Now, that's a big topic on our show, and I want to bring that out and in many respects for success, for negotiating. But let's say you're the average person, or consider yourself the average person. Good person, solid, but not in the business world, etc. Maybe you're a librarian, head of the library committee, everything there, but you're intellectually astute, but not a negotiator. Do you just kind of need self-hypnosis? Do we bring up our self-esteem? Or is there a magic little ball that goes back and forth in front of us that says, I am a winner, I am a winner?
No. If you're trying to build your identity, there's three major areas. And you've heard them before: mind, body, spirit. And I tell people to start with the mind. What are you taking in? What are you taking in that's continuously fueling your intellect, your knowledge, information, insight about yourself? Because that really comes around to self-awareness. right? Bill, I'm just getting to know you, and in the first couple minutes, you were comfortable enough saying, "Hey, I wish I would have known you 70 years ago." Right? Self-awareness is key to where are your strengths and weaknesses, and it doesn't mean that you're always going to work on your weaknesses. It's just recognition of. So that way you can either avoid those or get other people to help you with that. So if you're trying to work on your identity, I say it's self-awareness, really understanding how you approach scenario situation, especially in a negotiations, competitiveness, assertiveness, conflict management, ego, understanding that internal self. And that's why the book is even entitled, Negotiating from the Inside Out, because first and foremost, you got to know your inside. You got to know how you're wired in order to be able to then use the tactics and strategies that we talk about.
Clint, I want our audience to pay close attention now because I'm going to tell them that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, but the important part of this announcement is that our guest today is Clint Babcock, spelled B-A-B-C-O-C-K. His book is Negotiating from the Inside Out, a playbook for business success. And Clint, please tell us where we can get the book and a website where we can learn even more.
Oh, sure. Amazon's going to be the easiest. Just do a quick search on either my name, Clint Babcock, or Negotiating from the Inside Out, and you'll be able to just order it right off of Amazon. That's the quickest and easiest way.
And is there a website where we can find out more information?
Absolutely. You can go to Sandler.com, SANDLER.com, and click on the shop site, and you'll see my book along with a number of my colleagues' books on various different sales and leadership content.
And we'll give that to our audience again. I just want our audience to know we've been on for 33 years. That's more than 1,500 shows. This is definitely one of those books I really wish I had at the beginning of our first show 33 years ago. This would have helped me so much. It would have been such an enlightenment, and it would have given me so much more power and strength in negotiations. So if you're thinking of getting someone a gift, if you have a spouse or a son or a daughter who's going into the business world, this is one of those must-reads. It's a very easy read, but literally within 2 or 3 or 4 days, they're going to use it at work. They're going to use it just getting a seat on the subway, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, this is really a big part of life. It's an excellent book, Negotiating from the Inside Out, a playbook for business success, by our guest, Clint Babcock. Clint, you say we have to start by negotiating with ourselves. What am I fighting with myself about?
Well, you're first of all, one of the big aspects is understanding your communication style, meaning how do you process information and how do you communicate? So what are we fighting with ourselves is we first have to have that self-awareness of how are we going to communicate our point of view? How are we going to be able to adjust to a potential counterpart? And what can we expect of them? So it's a model we call DISC, D-I-S-C. It's a very popular model that if you understand this, you can get some insights as to what your tendencies are going to be as a negotiator. And then also your counterpart, once you can recognize what kind of communication style that person is, you can have a better key insight as to how to communicate with them effectively. Think about it. Negotiations, leadership, sales, it's all just communication, right? But if I can communicate with you at the level and the area that you prefer to communicate with, then I can start to build that relationship. Bill, here's a question that I ask my clients all the time. Would you communicate harder or softer based upon the relationship you have with somebody? And predominantly, sometimes they say, well, if it's my brother or sister, I'm negotiating really hard. I'm like, yeah, I get that. But if you had a good relationship with somebody, would you be harder on them? Would you press them harder, or would you be a little softer? And they always say, yeah.
I'm the softie.
Exactly. You would be both. And that's where everybody goes. So this is the part about inside out, is understanding I got to build a relationship with you. If I can build a relationship with you, I've got a better chance of you wanting to negotiate softer with me because of that relationship.
So right away, you're teaching me a trick. Is that because if I'm talking to you and I like you, I'm not going to push you for the maximum penny at the end. Exactly. You're a nice guy. I like you. You've taught me things already.
Bingo. You got it. You got it. If you're likable, approachable, communicate in the way that they like to communicate with, and ensuingly, depending upon the length of time we would be together, if I got to I have bought things and never even personally tried to negotiate with somebody because I trusted them. And I didn't want to disrespect them by trying to negotiate down. And then there's other times where I've negotiated really, really hard one way or the other because I just never got that chance to build a relationship. So I'm looking for a good deal.
Clint, I just have to ask you this question because as I'm looking at you, I could just picture it. And it could be a fun thing if you don't do it. But when you're giving a talk and you walk into the room, now you come in there and a few people get there early and kind of give you the nod like hello or see a symbol, maybe a local pro sports team or something that you have in common. Do you say to the first person, you know what, would you bring that chair over there and just put that, would you help me out a little bit? And could you get me some water? And by the way, I didn't get a chance to eat. Would you run the back and before 2 minutes have passed, you've literally negotiated 8 things without anybody knowing it. You got a free muffin from me. Someone else moved the chair. Someone else got you the water. We rearranged your papers and brought the stapler from upstairs to downstairs. Do you do something like that just to kind of test the waters?
You know, Bill, the answer is no. I'll do just the opposite. Hey, are you comfortable? Is it too cold in here? How's it feel? Can I get you anything? Okay, because think about it. If I'm taking early on in that relationship, then they've done something for me. If I'm giving early in the relationship, then how are they going to feel about me? If I'm looking after their comfort, after them, hey, I appreciate you coming. Hey, just so I know, is there any 1 or 2 things you personally would like to make sure that we get out of today? I am trying to connect with them and hey, in any way, shape or form, because now if they have a good connection with me, the instructor or trainer or what have you, because we had that small chance to personally interact and I've asked them about them, my relationship level goes up.
So in a way, though, you did negotiate because you negotiated trust. You got all of us, in effect, to trust you, just as when you sent me or your agent a copy of your book. Yep. As soon as I saw the title, I said, I got to read this right away. Some of them sit there a few days, not yours. I was marking it up and putting little arrows, and I've got to try. And I called your agent the next day or emailed her and said, let's get a show going. And we did, I think, in less than a week, which is remarkable. So in a sense, just building a trust between us is a type of negotiation, I guess you could say.
Gosh, it sure is. Exactly. And that's why negotiation starts early, right? If I can build that relationship early, then as we go through, I can help to reduce any kind of negotiations later. May not eliminate it, but it sure could reduce it. And think about this move. Sometimes giving something early creates trust. And if I can give something early, like a little bit of my time, a little bit of effort or something that's not considered a concession, not of anything of great value, but of something that you would value early on, then I'm starting to build that trust with you. And that is going to save me a lot of time and energy and effort and frustration later on in the process.
And again, most of us probably wouldn't consider that. They'd say, I'm a nice guy, or you're a nice guy, or she's a nice woman. They're just doing something to help us or giving us a pen because we forgot our pen. But it is a type of negotiation, and it's something we probably do every day, just as you said, to make someone feel comfortable. Is the temperature all right? Would you like a glass of water before you begin if you're coming in as a speaker? And again, just even in this light conversation, you're teaching us so much. You're definitely teaching me a lot. Clint, I'd like our audience once again to know that if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, but the main man today is Clint Babcock. He's our guest. That's spelled B-A-B-C-O-C-K. He's the author of the book, Negotiating from the Inside Out, a playbook for business success, and it's really that. So if you're looking for that manual or that playbook, get hold of Negotiating from the Inside Out. Clint's going to tell us where to get it and the website.
Yeah, you can get it off of Amazon.com, easy enough, as well as go to Sandler.com and hit the shop file, and you'll be able to find the book there.
And again, it's an easy read. That's one of the things we always strive for on the show, Clint, that we don't want someone to be too burdened down. This is not supposed to be a chemistry textbook or something that you'd find in medical school. It's something you can use tomorrow. And as the next section that we're going to get to with you and find out some of the tricks of the trade, I think it's going to wake up a lot of us to say, oh my gosh, I got caught on that yesterday, or I just did that to someone 2 weeks ago. So now we're going to move into that. First of all, what are some of the errors that we are apt to make? Is there like 1 or 2 or 10 common errors that you want people to be alert to?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me address something that you said about the book, and like it's an easy read and it's something that you can apply. There's a lot of great negotiation books out there. There really is. A lot of them are very academic. There was, things that are done at colleges and universities, great lessons that have come out of that. Some of the ones I've read have been from FBI and CIA hostage and geopolitical negotiators that are, doing stuff that we'll never know about, and things. And I think those are wonderful as well. This was written in order to be able to, for a business person, to be able to say, hey, I can take this and use this as a playbook and apply it. So some of the big mistakes that I see early on in any kind of negotiations is the moment somebody asks for something, the person doesn't have a path to create distance between a concession and that ask. In other words, their first move is to give a concession. Give in, say either, hey, yes, I can do that, or they say, well, I can't do that, but I can do this. And they're already making a give, and that breaks one of our core major rules, which is you're giving up something without getting something in return. So their strategy, they usually don't even have a strategy or a path or a process to negotiate. So therefore, the first thing they try to do is, hey, I can get the deal if I give this. And that's unfortunately even diminishes the value of what you're presenting because, let's say it was a price concession and you immediately gave a price concession. That's not the first move. And that's the big mistake that I see a lot of people make is they think that, hey, let's negotiate this on price. And that may not be the real issue.
Now, I know in your book, and I love this word, you have a section called gambits. Mm-hmm. And basically, these are some of the, I guess you'd call it negotiating routines that the pros use or that we should be alert to. Certainly, we're going to see them. And as I said, when I started reading this section, it was like, oh, I got taken there. I did that wrong. I did that. So I definitely screwed up. I want to save our audience these type of things. So can you tell us some of the common gambits that we should watch out for? And we'll probably see tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah. So one popular one is the hot potato. Okay. So the hot potato is if I am a potential buyer, all of a sudden I have a problem that I got to throw to you to get you to solve. So it could be, hey, Bill, I know we've been working towards this deal and really excited about getting this done, but, it's coming towards the end of the year. I've got about 20% less in my budget than what I actually had. So what can you do for me? Right. So, right. What's my problem? My problem is I don't have as much money as I thought I'm going to have. What am I doing now? I'm making that your problem. And, and now what happened? I'm tossing a hot potato over to you. And now if you don't recognize that as a strategy, what do? You start trying to either discount or come up with ways to value engineer your solution or maybe cut out this, cut out that. The problem is we got to recognize, wait a second, this isn't my problem. Right? How many times do people try to dump their problems onto you? That's the hot potato move. They want you to solve their problems. Well, we got to be astute to recognize that. So that's a pretty big one we see. The other one that is most common is lower authority, higher authority. Right? Somebody says, hey, I really appreciate this. Look, let me take this to so-and-so. and or so and so, hey, they said you're going to have to change your start date, or you're going to have to do this or that. So you're not really talking to the right people, and you're dealing with a lower authority, and they're hiding behind that higher authority. We see that a lot when people sell to husbands and wives, right? They'll hide behind one or the other to help them in their negotiation situation.
Oh, that's mean and tricky. I'm seeing that, but you're absolutely right. They're going to look at one or the other, and if it's something the female likes, she might smile, and you like that interior, you like that cloth or leather feeling, and that, or might be the husband. You like the speed of that engine in the car, or the toolkit that comes with it that it identifies, and you can see he's smiling, and now you're winning him over, and the other spouse wants the leftover spouse to be happy, so they'll go with the interior or the super fast wheels or whatever it is that's on there. I think there was one called the flinch. What is that? Is that what the name implies?
Oh, the flinch is a great one. So imagine you're talking with somebody, and you give a price, or you give a budget range, and here's what the flinch is, and we've all done it. It's a slight, small emotional reaction to something that's being presented. And you can see it in their physicalness. You can see it in their verbal, that, wow, oh, geez, I didn't think it was going to be that much, or something that makes you feel like that pull back. And here's what it does, and here's why it's so powerful, is it makes us feel like we just offended them in some way. And what we do, if we don't know any better, is we start to jump in and rescue instead of asking more questions to find out what's going on, what caused that reaction. So if it's used purposefully, the really cool thing is if you're the buyer and you flinch at something, wow, that's way too much, or to that extent, what happens is it takes into account the psychology of what we talk about early in the book, understanding Cartman's triangle. It's really understanding the rescuer, victim, and persecutor, right? The persecutor is going, wow, that's too much. What's it doing is it's accessing, Bill, your rescuer. Now you're trying to rescue me, right? And now what were you thinking? And now I'm I'm negotiating against myself, instead of maybe just being a little bit quiet and letting them express why they are flinching. So I think it must.
I'm just thinking, having you as a professor or a trainer or a leader of a seminar must be great, because to see the tricks that you show people and they're sitting there with their mouth open, it's like a magician's tricks when you say, wait, we know it's a trick, but how did he do that? Once again, Clint, the time goes much too quickly. The book is Negotiating from the Inside Out, a playbook for business success by our guest, Clint Babcock. Clint, please tell us where we can get it and the website.
Yeah, Amazon.com is going to be the best, and Sandler.com. Click on the shop notation there on Sandler.com, and you'll be able to see my book as well as a number of others from Sandler.
And again, I want to remind our audience of the title, Negotiating from the Inside Out. If you have a student in the family or someone getting a new job, great opportunity. If they get a raise, maybe they'll give you 10%, so it might be even better. You're negotiating while you're giving someone the book, so it's a win-win for everybody. Clint, thank you so much for being with us today. We'd like to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.